Hey guys, Rusty, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Cool, hey. Hey guys, Rusty over here, and today we're going to be talking about the interview that Slootbag did with Ion Hazzikostas, the game director of World of Warcraft, about the upcoming expansion, Shadowlands, and why I am so incredibly hyped for this expansion now. Like, I was excited, because it was the end of BFA. Now I'm beyond hyped, and I cannot wait for this expansion to come out. One major reason for that, but essentially, guys, this whole entire interview with Ian was really, really good. A lot of positive stuff in here. It made me very happy. There were absolutely some negative things too. There's definitely two things, especially in there, that I completely disagreed with, but we'll get to those later on. Overall, this interview is very positive, and also props to Slootbag for asking all the hard-hitting questions. Like, he just went in there and asked about friggin' Titanforging RNG. He asked about the GCD change. He asked about personal loot. All the questions that, no allied race questions. Oh, what's the next allied race going to be, Ian? Nuh-uh. That's the important question. So, listen, guys, I really hope Slootbag does. Honestly, he should do all the future interviews with Ian. I love how Slootbag did the interview. So, let's move on to the first thing. Now, I am going to go out of order here. I want to start off with the thing that made me the most excited about this expansion and why I just want to get my hands on it. And that's, Sloot basically asked Ian about the RNG behind gear. So, essentially, your Warforging, your Titanforging, your Corruption. He asked, essentially, will there be an RNG counterbalance in Shadowlands? So essentially, will there be a deterministic way to counteract your corruption in Titanforging? Kind of like the way this thing I suggested I made the video on earlier during the year. You know what Ian said to that? Imagine this piece of crap right here, this terrible, awful, disgusting thing. Imagine this is your corruption, Titanforging, and what's the other one? Warforging. Ion Hazzikostas. You know what he did? Just got rid of it. Got rid of it. It's gone. It's not in Shadowlands, boys. That's right. No Titanforging, no Warforging, no fucking corruption in Shadowlands. Oh my god, yes. Yeah, this is in my opinion, the most important change coming in Shadowlands. Now, listen, I feel like a lot of people might disagree with me, but I'm pretty sure Titanforging was one of the most toxic things ever added in the World of Warcraft. I'm so happy that they are getting rid of it in Shadowlands. Now, the reason why they originally added this, according to Ian, which I completely agree with, is that too much loot was dropping and you would hit best in slot right away. You had the 4 different raid difficulties. You had War Fronts, you had Mythic Plus Cash at the end of the week. You had so much gear dropping they would hit BIS right away, so they wanted a way for you to keep progressing your character with, so that's why they added the Titanforging and Corruption, all the RNG effects onto your gear. So what they're going to be doing in Shadowlands is kind of like classic World of Warcraft style. They're going to be making less loot drop. Now, they didn't say if they're going to go exactly like classic, where it's like 2 pieces of gear off a boss, who knows? But if I had to guess, honestly, it might actually just be 2 pieces off of the boss from now on, but who knows? That's obviously stuff we'll see later down the alpha. Essentially, guys, I'm okay with that. That sounds awesome to me, because you know what? Yes, less gear drops. Once you see that item drop, and if you get that item on Mythic difficulty, at the very least, it's your best in slot item. This list is back, and I'm incredibly excited for that. Now, they said there are going to be tertiary stats still on gear, like your Avoidance, your Leech. I guess you're Indestructible if you want that. That'll probably still be RNG, but however, in my opinion, those don't really matter too much, except for maybe Leech for healers. However, but I'm okay with that if that was randomly rolled on gear. I prefer it not, of course. That way you can get full bits, maybe add it as like a description profession thing you can add. However, if that's RNG, whatever. Now, they are also undecided on sockets. Now, this, again, same thing. I wouldn't be too upset if it was an RNG thing, kind of like it is in BFA. However, I think something they did completely right with sockets was in patch 8.3, the current patch, where you could buy I think it's the Gouged Eyes of N'Zoth with 25,000 of the Corrupted Mementos from the Horrific Visions, and then you could add a socket to a piece of gear. I thought that was perfect. And you can still randomly roll. I thought that was a perfectly designed system, and I honestly, if that's what I think, they should continue in with Shadowlands. Now, for the rest of this interview, I am going to go over it. However, that was the big one for me. That's the thing that got me really excited for Shadowlands. I do want to go over the 2 negative things first that I completely disagree with. So the first negative thing that I do want to talk about is going to be the swapping of the covenants that Ian did talk about in the interview. Now, guys, listen, I'm going to keep this kind of brief since I do plan on making another separate, longer video on my view on covenants and why I don't like them in their current state. So I do just want to focus on one point that Ian made. Now, when he was talking to Sloot, he kind of, he said this is an RPG aspect about identity when you make this choice. It shouldn't just be tied to cosmetics, it should be tied to your player power too, and he kind of compared it to a game like Skyrim, an RPG game if you ever played that. And making a meaningful choice in there, what you want your character to be. Do you want your character to be like a mage, a sorcerer, or do you want to be this giant armored beast, two-handed wielding sword? I picked that one, by the way. And what do you want your character to be? Now, I do want to say to that is that Skyrim is a single-player game. WoW is an MMO, a multiplayer game. So the choice you make in Skyrim, if you want to be the mage, which is clearly the worst choice, it is. Don't even argue with me. It's the worst choice. Which is clearly the worst choice. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. However, since it's a single-player game, you're still able to complete the game and beat the final boss. Yeah, it might be harder for you because you're basically playing a crappier character, but there's no one else in the game saying, no, you can't come because you made the worst choice. If you make the worst choice in WoW, let's say as a demon hunter, I want to be a Necrolord because I think they look awesome, but Kyrians have the best ability. If I pick Necrolord and I try and get into a Mythic plus, I don't know, 15, even maybe a heroic raid, chances are I'm probably going to be declined for another demon hunter that made the correct choice. I completely disagree with what Ian said there, again, strictly because it's a multiplayer game, guys, and he also said they're going to try and tune it properly where there's not that much of a difference between abilities in terms of power. However, again, look what happened with Legion artifacts. I think it was rogues. I want to say it was subtlety. I'm not 100% which spec it was, but I think it was subtlety. Essentially, they said, Legion artifacts, don't worry about it, we're not going to nerf them. And look what happened to subtlety rogues. Again, I think it was subtlety rogues. All their subtlety rogues put all their artifacts into their subtlety weapon, and it got nerfed. Subtlety got nerfed, and all that artifact power was wasted. I don't think Blizzard is going to be able to balance the covenants. Again, I'm going to stop it there, guys, talking about the covenants. There are other points I want to make. However, I'm going to save that for my covenant video when I do make that. So the second negative thing that I want to talk about, and again, I can make a whole separate video on this, and I probably will, is the fact that they're still not putting Master Loot back in the game. Ian, why not? Why the hell not? Why not, at the very least, put Guild Master Loot back in the game? That only affect Mythic raiding guilds and some heroic raiding guilds. I don't want to hear this crap about trials not getting loot. You know why they're not getting loot? It's because they just joined the guild. There's a reason for that. Why would I not give someone loot who's been in the guild for 2 years? It's a big upgrade for them, maybe just as the same upgrade as the trial. Why would I give it to the trial over the person who's been raiding with us for 2 years? What's going to happen is the trial's going to get the loot, he's going to leave the guild, he's going to bye-bye, and that loot is wasted. I don't want to hear this crap about trials not getting loot. It's ridiculous. And I also don't want to hear this argument about these freaking corrupt loot councils stealing all this loot. 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen. Sure, you have some bad guilds where you have these really sketchy loot councils that trade each other loot. You know what you do? You freaking press the enter button and you type /G quit. No one's here holding the gun to your head saying, hey, you better not leave that guild. I'll pull the game. No, that's not a thing. They could leave the guild and go find another one. The person is making a conscious decision to stay in that guild. Let them make the choice. For the love of God, put Master Loot back in the game. It's done nothing but negative crap since it has been removed. Anyways, I could talk about this forever. It just blows my mind. It just makes no sense to me, guys, that they're not putting Master Loot back in the game. I don't get why. However, I will say I can raid and deal with forced personal loot. What I couldn't deal with was all the loot RNG, and now, hey, that's gone in Shadowlands. But put Master Loot back in. I mean, come on, like what the hell? Now, for the rest of this interview, I'm for the most part just gonna skim over a few things. I'll make a few comments, but this is just for you guys if just want to see what the interview is like. So they did talk about, is this gonna be the final list of essentially class changes and unpruned abilities? They're saying there's not gonna be like a major another drop of abilities, but they might add in like a few things. Like they gave the example of single-minded fury for fury warriors. Now, I'm not playing a warrior. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I just know that the balding warrior community is not too happy about that and doesn't really want it back in the game. So there you go on that. Now, if you also didn't know, they are doing an AoE cap, at least on the alpha right now. So some AoE abilities are capped to 5 or 8 targets. I forgot which one. It might be some or both. What Ian said, I don't know how I feel about this. I understand what Ian says, and in a way I kind of agree with it, which is essentially they want to differentiate between cleave and AoE, you know, like cleave being cleave like up to 5 targets and AoE being like everything. I get that, and I kind of agree with it. However, I don't really know how I feel about that yet. So I'm just going to say that's just Ian's reasoning there, and that's what they're doing right now. I'm not going to give an opinion on that right now. Now, they did also talk about the GCD changes, and Ian essentially said they're not going to revert the whole GCD change, but they're willing to look at some abilities. So, for example, I'm leveling up my my DKs right now for the Allied Race gear, and an example I could give right now that feels really bad is having to use Pillar of Frost, and then use Empower Rune Weapon, and then use my abilities. That's an example I would give there. Now, the next thing that they talked about is going to be the mission table. Now, Ian did confirm it is going to be in Shadowlands like it was in BFA and Legion, where it is not your central piece of content like it was in Draenor, which was the big problem with it in Draenor. So, I'm perfectly fine with that, with the mission table being in Shadowlands. Awesome. Now, the next thing they talked about after that is going to be gear swapping in dungeons. So, in Mythic Plus dungeons currently, you can't do that, and it seems like that's going to be the same for Shadowlands. As Ian did say, there are no current plans to swap gear in dungeons. Personally, I disagree with that. I think it'd be pretty cool, because I think if mostly trinkets you would be swapping, obviously some other pieces of gear, but mainly trinkets you would be swapping. I think it'd be cool to have like this collection of trinkets that you could, switch in and out from pole to pole and really optimize your damage. Personally, I think that'd be kind of cool and really fun. I guess Blizzard disagrees though. So, right now, no gear swapping dungeons. Maybe that'll change later in the alpha beta cycle though. Now, this is a big one here, boys. Guess what's coming back? Yeah, tier sets too. Listen, I'm so excited for this expansion. Tier sets are back. Now, they said it won't be there for launch, fine, whatever, but it will be back, and it's probably the first patch of the expansion. But point being, we're getting tier sets back. I love tier sets, power-wise and also looks-wise. I think BFA completely failed in the looks-wise, except the leather set for Battle of the Zarlor, the Mythic one. Awesome set. I'm really happy they're coming back in Shadowlands. Again, I can make a whole separate video on tier sets, on good or bad stuff about them, but right now, just know that I'm happy about tier sets coming back. Now, they also mentioned alt unfriendliness, and essentially they're saying, yeah, Shadowlands is going to be alt friendly with no AP grind and being able to earn some stuff while you're leveling up, which they mentioned at BlizzCon. What I will say about this, yes, make it easy to play alts, unlike BFA, but also give me a reason to play alts. The best examples I give in Legion are the class Order Hall campaigns, the class mounts, the Mage Tower. Those were all different experiences that I can't experience on, say, just my Demon Hunter. If I want to see the Mage class Order Hall campaign and get them out, I have to play my Mage. I leveled up every single class in Legion just to complete the Order Hall and get them out for obviously the feats of strength, of course. And essentially it was a reason to play alts. I hope they do something like that in Shadowlands. Now, they also talked about feedback in the BFA alpha beta cycle, and essentially how the community felt as a whole that the notion of feedback wasn't being listened to. Now, the first thing I think about this was the videos that Preach put out about the Azerite gear and its problems with that, and how he called out every single problem with Azerite and even gave some good ideas how to fix it. And, the game launched, BFA launched with all those problems, and it wasn't until I think it was 8.1 and in some cases 8.2, where all the problems were fixed with some of Preach's ideas. It was kind of funny to me. They said they're essentially going to be doing that better, and they could do a better job in this cycle. And honestly, so far, I think they are doing that with what they had said so far. I think they're doing a good job so far. And hopefully they continue to do that throughout the alpha beta cycle for Shadowlands and make it really good. Now, next they talked about the impact of passive abilities like trinkets, your corruption effects, Infinite Stars, Twilight Devastation. Basically stuff like that, all these passive procs and abilities that have an effect on your gear that just randomly proc and you have no control over. Essentially, to summarize what Ian said, they kind of agree with what I feel, which is pole to pole, the variation of your DPS should be dependent on your skill, on the buttons that you control and press, and not the dependence on random procs and passive abilities. They said stuff like that should be the middle of the road, like your Infinite Stars and your Vision of Perfection, stuff like that. That should be middle of the road stuff, and your output should be dependent on your skill, which makes sense to me, and I agree with 100%. So the next thing that Sloot and Ian talked about was essentially a bunch of Mythic Plus stuff. First of all, starting off with Mythic Plus affixes, they said overall they're happy with the structure of Mythic Plus, so they're not going to completely redo it, and they're happy with the seasonal affixes. However, they do want to continue with the Kiss Curse affixes, which they didn't really do with BFA. Ian did say that Awaken is kind of a Kiss Curse effect, which sure, yeah, technically it is, but I'm talking about stuff like maybe you do 50% increased damage, but you take 25% increased damage, but no plans to blow it up and completely put it back together. What I will say for this is maybe bring back some seasonal affixes, like Awaken, like your Reaping. Those were really fun affixes. Don't bring back Infested and Beguiling. Those were crap. I would say maybe bring back some stuff like that, and also keep an eye out for certain affixes that make dungeons really bad. Like Toll de Gore. I like Toll de Gore. Except on Sanguine Weeks. It's awful. Way Chris Manor on Sanguine Weeks. Awful. I don't know how they could do it, but in tight corridors like that, don't make Sanguine a thing. I would look at how affixes affect dungeons like that, for example. Now, they also talked about rewards for Mythic Plus, since randomness, like, your Titanforging, Warforging, Corruption, that's not going to be a thing anymore, and what are people going to do? Why are people going to do Mythic Plus? So, right now, they have the AOTC and, the Cutting Edge, for completing every single plus 10, and then Cutting Edge would be every single plus 15. I'm getting that mount, by the way. Easy. They're going to continue to do that. They're going to continue to do mounts, maybe add some more titles. I think that's all good. However, what they're doing in the weekly chest is, since it's not as... This is how I understand this. Now, I could be completely misunderstanding this, but since even the weekly chests won't be as random, they're essentially, instead of just doing one dungeon a week, the more dungeons you do, it'll increase your chance of getting the item you want from the weekly chest. Essentially, that's how I read it. I could be completely misunderstanding this, and this is also early in the alpha, so we'll have to see what happens later on for that. Now, after that, they talked about Torghast, and is this going to be limited? He said essentially there is going to be some limit, even if you can't do it for some of the rewards, kind of like Horrific Visions, and I'm okay with that because I think it being limited makes it really fun, because you look forward to the next time you get to do Torghast, or for example the Horrific Visions. If you're able to do Horrific Visions unlimited times, even without rewards, you wouldn't really look forward to the next vision. It wouldn't be as special and as exciting. I think the amount of visions you do right now might be a little too much, but even now, I'd be okay with, for example, the frequency we do visions. I'd be okay with that frequency for Torghast, unless Torghast is like super freaking amazing. In that case, I'll make it limited. But essentially, I'm okay with it being limited. Now, they talked about rewards for Torghast. Now, obviously, you're going to get legendaries, more on that in a second. However, there's also going to be cosmetics. They said, your pets, your mounts, stuff like that. You're also going to free stuff. You're going to unlock people for your Covenant. And again, legendaries are going to be your prime reward. So essentially, what they're talking about legendaries, they're going to be craftable. You're going to unlock recipes from, your variety of sources. By the way, I do have the interview up. That's what I'm reading off of. That's going to be, your maw, kind of stuff like that. Kind of similar to essences. And this is important. Recipes you learn are going to be account-wide. Again, more alt-friendliness. I think that's absolutely awesome. They even said these are the origins and maybe some of your 2-piece and 4-piece sets and Legion Legendaries effects. I'm thinking they're bringing some of those effects back. Listen, if I could get tier 21 Havoc Demon Hunter, freaking eye-beaming everything, Mythic A&R style, oh my god. Oh, I'll never stop playing my Demon Hunter ever again. Essentially, guys, the most important things to take away for this: legendaries come from Torghast. Torghast is going to have a limit. There's going to be mounts and stuff come from that. And the recipes you learn for your craftable legendaries are going to be account-wide. Now, getting close to the end here, they did talk about World Quest and the whole World Quest 2.0 thing. I feel like they didn't give too much information about that. Essentially, he just said there's no plans for emissaries, which I don't really know how I feel about that. I kind of do like emissaries. I'm not a fan of how reputations work with emissaries. For me personally, I feel like it's a little too early in the alpha to see, but they said they're going to essentially replace them with callings, which are kind of similar to how Nazjatar and Mechagon worked. And, well, essentially for me, we'll just have to see what happens with that. But essentially, what they said about World Quest, no more emissaries. It'll be kind of similar to how it was in Nazjatar and Mechagon. Now, they also talked about crossplay between PvP and PvE. Essentially, you get some good items from PvP that are good in PvE, and vice versa, good items in PvE that are good in PvP. I think I said that right. Essentially, crossplay. They said some crossplay is healthy, and you know what? I agree with that. Last time I checked, this is not the world of PvP craft. This is not the world of PvE craft. This is the World of Warcraft. You shouldn't be playing specific parts of the game. You should be playing the whole game. When I play Halo, I don't just go and play Assault on the Control Room 20 times. I do it 30 times, and then I play the rest of the game. I play the whole game, okay? You should be able to play the whole game. They also said, which I thought this was important, someone who can excel in all aspects of the game should have a slight advantage. That's right. That is absolutely correct. And that's coming from someone who sucks absolute donkey pina at PvP. I'm awful at PvP. I still think that. Someone who, it makes me want to get good at PvP and get those advantages. It's a reason to play the other aspect of the game. and I couldn't agree with that more. And now finally, the last thing they talked about for the interview, it kind of has to do with Classic, well actually exactly has to do with Classic, was the biggest thing they learned from Classic was the return to the social roots of World of Warcraft. And guys, listen, this is an MMORPG, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. I could not agree more. If there's one thing to keep people playing this game during Warlords of Draenor and BFA, the two worst expansions ever, WoD was worse, by the way, it was. It's going to be the social aspect of the game, and I couldn't agree more. And that is the whole interview, guys. Listen, I was excited for Shadowlands, again, because it would have meant the end of BFA. This interview made me beyond hyped. When he announced the whole change for, Titanforging, basically less loot RNG, I leapt out of my seat and I did a little dance. I did a little dance. I was so excited. I still am. I had to make this video for you guys. That change right there is the most important thing, in my opinion, for the entire game of World of Warcraft. Now, there's still some problems, the biggest one being the Covenants. Again, video on that in the future, and also for me personally, again, video on that in the future. However, we still have a long alpha beta cycle. We really, guys, listen, if you get an alpha beta, hopefully I get it. Again, my YouTube channel is too small, so obviously they won't see me, so I'm waiting for you guys. I'm waiting with you guys too. Hopefully we get in. Give Blizzard your feedback. What do you think of everything in Shadowlands, but mainly the Covenants? If you don't like Covenants and the abilities being locked behind them, tell them why. Give them that feedback. This is very important. I don't want to hear this bullshit. Oh, it's just alpha. They'll fix it. Don't worry, they'll fix it. Yeah, it's alpha. The whole point of it is to give feedback. So give your fucking feedback. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're as hyped for Shadowlands as I am. And guys, remember, the most important part of every video, gotta get this message out. It's important. You remember that piece of shit Halo 5? Awful Halo. Best Halo. It's Halo 3. Listen. Guys, Halo 2 was good. It was an incredible Halo. It was amazing. I could quote 90% of Halo 2. You know what I could also do? I could quote 100% of Halo 3. Halo 3 was the best Halo. Campaign amazing. Multiplayer amazing. And it had Forge and custom games. Halo 3 was the best Halo, boys. Although Halo 2 is very, very good. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. Until next time. Bye-bye.